compact, textbook. Then there was a golfer whose swing broke almost every rule in that textbook, a loop. So strange, one commentator compared it to an octopus falling out of a tree. Coaches would have told him to fix it, scrap it, start over. Instead, that same swing produced the lowest round ever recorded on the PGA Tour and carried its owner to the number 2 ranking in the world. This is the story of Jim Furyk. Jim Furyk was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania in 1970. His father, Mike Furyk, worked as an assistant golf professional at Edgemont Country Club and later held similar positions at clubs across the state. Golf was not a hobby in that household. It was the family trade. Mike became his son's only coach. Not for a season, not for a few lessons, for his entire career. No swing instructor ever touched Jim Furyk's technique except his own father. And Mike Furyk had one guiding belief: let the swing be natural. Do not force a shape onto a body that does not want it. That philosophy shaped a boy who was, by every account, a gifted all-around athlete. At Manheim Township High School in Lancaster County, Furyk played basketball, football, and baseball. He was talented enough at all three that classmates and coaches noticed him on any given afternoon, the kind of kid other students expected to see on a football field or a baseball diamond, not carrying a golf bag. That is exactly why golf was different. Golf was something young Furyk kept quiet about. Before a school golf match, he would ask his mother to drop him off early, just so he could slide his clubs into his locker before his classmates arrived. He did not want them to see it. There was no swagger in it yet, no record rounds, no trophies, just a teenager who excelled at the sports everyone expected him to play, while hiding the one that would eventually make him famous, practicing a technique his father refused to straighten out. That decision, to let an unusual motion stay unusual, would follow him for the next 3 decades. To understand why the swing looked so unusual, it helps to break down what actually happened in it. On the backswing, his hips underturned. Coming down, they overturned. His arms traced a wide loop behind his body, and at the moment of impact, his right elbow pinned tight against his hip. Nothing about it followed a standard blueprint. The comparison came from David Faherty, a longtime golf broadcaster known for his sharp, unfiltered commentary. Watching Furyk swing, he said it looked like an octopus falling out of a tree. The line stuck instantly, and it has followed Furyk in golf media ever since. Another commentator, Gary McCord, offered his own version. He compared it to a one-armed golfer using an axe to kill a snake inside a phone booth. 2 different broadcasters, 2 different images, same conclusion. Nobody had ever seen anything quite like it. The swing was only half the story. Furyk's pre-shot routine became just as well known. Sports Illustrated once compared his preparation to a geologist conducting a seismic survey. Before every shot, he hitched up his pants with his right hand. Before every shot on the green, he read the line, stepped up, stepped away, and repeated the exact same sequence every single time, no matter the situation. It was slow, it was deliberate, and it never changed. That same discipline earned him a pair of nicknames on tour: the Grinder and the Businessman. Not flashy titles, but accurate ones. He treated each round like a job to be done carefully, not a performance to be admired. And the mockery never really stopped. It followed Furyk through his teenage years in Pennsylvania. It followed him through college at Arizona, where he was twice named an All-American. It followed him well into his professional career, long after his swing had already started producing tournament wins. Furyk never saw it that way. Asked about the criticism, he said, "I got a lot of recognition early in my career because of my goofy swing, and it was a positive for me. I'm a guy who finds a comfort zone and sticks to his guns." The reason it held up has less to do with appearance and more to do with repeatability. A swing does not need to look elegant to be consistent. It needs to return the club to the same position, shot after shot, under pressure. Furyk's loop, however strange, did exactly that. It rarely broke down, and it rarely missed a fairway. The laughter never disappeared, but neither did the results. By the year 2003, Jim Furyk had already won 7 times on the PGA Tour, but he had never won a major championship. In golf, that distinction mattered more than almost anything else. Just 5 days before that year's U.S. Open, Furyk faced a problem that had nothing to do with his swing. The club he had used on the green to 2 top 10 finishes was ruled non-conforming by the USGA. An emergency appeal was denied. With almost no notice, he was forced to switch to a different model and start building trust in it on the practice green at Olympia Fields days before the biggest tournament of his life. That changed at the U.S. Open, played at Olympia Fields outside Chicago. Furyk took the lead early and never gave it up. Through 4 rounds, he was the steadiest player on the course. Twice, when his approach shots missed the green, he saved par from difficult positions. Once from the fringe on the 2nd hole, once from 12 feet after chopping out of the rough on the 5th. Around him, the leaderboard came apart. Vijay Singh had tied a U.S. Open record with a 9-hole score of 29 and surged into contention only to shoot a 78 on the final day and fall out of it completely. Furyk never gave the field that opening. He closed with a 2/72 on the final day, finishing at 8 under par for the tournament, a total of 272 strokes. It tied the lowest 4-round score in the history of the U.S. Open. He won by 3 shots over Stephen Leaney of Australia. The date was Sunday, June the 15th, Father's Day. Furyk's father, Mike, the only coach he had ever had, was there. Before the final round began, the two of them stood together on the practice green, just as they had thousands of times before. Mike crouched behind his son, checking his alignment one last time. "Looks good," he told him, and sent him off to play. Following him around the course that day was his wife Tabitha, who had recently learned she was pregnant with their 2nd child. Hours later, Jim Furyk was a major champion. The golfer who had once hidden his clubs in a school locker, whose swing had been mocked for over a decade, had just delivered the best Father's Day gift he could offer, with a borrowed club and the same motion nobody thought would hold up. By the middle of the 2000s, Jim Furyk had become one of the most consistent players in the world. In September of 2006, he reached a career high of number 2 in the world rankings. He spent over 440 weeks inside the top 10 between 1999 and 2016. In 2010, he won 3 tournaments, capped off by victory at the season-ending Tour Championship, earning him both the FedEx Cup and PGA Player of the Year honors. Consistency, not flash, was the theme of his whole career. Furyk made the cut in roughly 80% of the events he entered over more than 2 decades on tour, a figure most players never come close to sustaining across an entire career. By the time he neared the end of his full-time schedule, he ranked 4th on the PGA Tour's all-time career earnings list, behind only a handful of the sport's biggest stars. Then came 2 rounds that redefined what was possible in the sport. In September of 2013 at the BMW Championship, Furyk shot a 12 under par 59, only the 6th player in PGA Tour history to reach that number. 3 years later, in August of 2016, at the Travelers Championship, he went even lower, a 12 under par 58, the lowest single round ever recorded on the PGA Tour. He hit every single green in regulation that day, all 18 of them. To understand how remarkable that is, consider the modern era. Bryson DeChambeau can outdrive Furyk's average by 40 or 50 yards, and he has shot a 58 of his own, but only in a live golf event, never on the PGA Tour. On the tour where the fields are deepest and the setups toughest, Furyk's 58 from 2016 still stands alone a decade later. The record belongs to a player who was never among the longest hitters on tour. It came from precision, not power. Furyk became the first golfer in PGA Tour history to card 2 rounds under 60 strokes in a career. Fans began calling him Mr. 58. It was proof that the swing everyone had laughed at for over 2 decades was not just durable, it was, on the right day, unbeatable. Not every chapter of Jim Furyk's career came easily. In late 2000, he suffered an injury that had nothing to do with golf. He was crossing a parking lot outside a Baltimore Ravens football game when he saw people nearby tossing a ball around. A pass came his way. He reached out to catch it, slipped on the pavement, and tore cartilage in his wrist. It cost him several events at the end of that season, including a shot at the Tour Championship. He did not wait long to answer it. Early the following year, at the Mercedes Championship, Furyk returned from the injury and won the tournament, catching a South African opponent who missed a short attempt on the final hole to hand him the title. It was a quiet answer to a strange and painful setback. 4 years later, in 2004, the damage returned. He needed surgery, and it kept him out of competition for 3 months. Furyk later admitted it was the closest thing to a frightening moment in his entire career. It was kind of a scary thought, he said, looking back on it, the fear that the strength might never fully come back. Recovery meant discipline. His doctor put him on what Furyk called a pitch count, 25 golf balls a day, no more, while the wrist healed. It forced him to rebuild his practice habits from nothing. It worked. Within 2 years, he was back inside the top 10, and by 2006, he had climbed to his career high ranking of world number 2. A second wrist surgery came in 2016. It cost him an appearance at that year's Masters tournament and ended a streak of 47 consecutive major championship appearances. Weeks after returning to competition, Furyk finished runner-up at the U.S. Open. 2 months after that, he shot the 58 that would define his career. The wrist that once threatened to end everything had just helped him rewrite the record book. Not every defining moment in Jim Furyk's career was a victory. In September of 1999, at the Ryder Cup in Brookline, Furyk defeated Sergio Garcia of Spain by a score of 4-3. That win became part of one of the greatest comebacks in Ryder Cup history, as the American team rallied from a 4-point deficit to win the Cup. 13 years later, the two men met again, and the story reversed completely. The setting was Medina Country Club. In September of 2012, the United States had built a commanding 10-6 lead heading into the final day of singles matches. Furyk was paired against Garcia once more. He held a 1-point advantage with 2 holes to play. Then it slipped away. Furyk lost both remaining holes, handing Garcia the match. Across the rest of the course, the same story repeated. American lead after American lead disappeared. Europe won 8 and tied one of the 12 singles matches that day, overturning the deficit entirely to retain the Cup by a final score of 14.5 to 13.5. It became known across Europe as the Miracle at Medina and is still considered one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the event. After his loss, Furyk stood on the final green, hands on his knees, head down, in evident shock for several long seconds before Garcia approached to shake his hand. That collapse was not an isolated bad day. It capped off a year full of them. Furyk had already let victories slip away that same season. Losing his hold on tournaments he was well positioned to win. He described it plainly at the time. It had been a difficult year, even though he felt he was playing well. The pattern continued 2 years later, in 2014, when he lost the RBC Canadian Open after missing a short attempt on the 18th green, allowing his opponent to close with 5 birdies over the last 8 holes and steal the title away. Years later, reflecting on both matches against Garcia, Furyk did not shy away from the memory. "It sure sucked being on the other side, I will say that," he said. "That was one of the worst days of my career." The swing that had carried him to a major championship and a record round had not changed. But golf, even for a player as consistent as Furyk, could still turn on 2 swings out of thousands. Jim Furyk's connection to the Ryder Cup did not end as a player. In January of 2017, he was named captain of the United States team for the following year's event. The result was one of the heaviest defeats in the competition's modern history. At Le Golf National in France, in September of 2018, the United States lost by a score of 17.5 to 10.5. Furyk's pairing decisions drew heavy criticism afterward, and his captain's picks combined for only 2 points across the entire week. Furyk did not make excuses. Asked to explain the loss, he said plainly, "Thomas was a better captain, and their team outplayed us. He put his guys in good position. When a team is successful, as they were, and as well as they played, that shows me they had great leadership." For years, that result appeared to be the final word on his time as a leader. Then, in the spring of 2026, the PGA of America made an unexpected decision. Nearly a decade after that defeat in France, Furyk was named United States Ryder Cup captain once again, this time for the 2027 matches in Ireland. He did not describe it as a chance to erase the past. He described it as something closer to loyalty. "My passion for the Ryder Cup and dedication to the U.S. team have never been stronger," he said. By then, Furyk had already moved into a different phase of his career. In 2020, at 50 years old, he joined the PGA Tour champions and won his very first start, then won again in his second. Joining Arnold Palmer as one of only 2 players ever to open a Champions Tour career with 2 straight victories. The following year, he added his first senior major title at the U.S. Senior Open. Through all of it stood one constant that finally ended in 2024, when Furyk and his longtime caddy, Mike "Fluff" Cowan, parted ways after 25 years on the bag together. A quiet, amicable